Welcome back to the General Tire Jim Beaver Show with Brittany Cardone. We are, what do we got? My good friend Paul Thacker, who, conveniently enough, we probably, Paul, haven't talked in a couple of years. And I posted something about Joe Biden and the whole new government bailout of student loans. And I immediately just texted you. I was like, PT, what the hell's going on, buddy?
No, we agree on that. I was fortunate enough to be able to pay off my student loans, but now I'm lucky enough to help other people pay theirs off too, apparently. So we got that going for us today.
Yeah, dude, you are all about charity. I love you, PT. I mean, you always thinking of others, buddy.
That's right.
It's a great way of looking at it, actually. It makes me a little less angry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, people need help, but so do I. So I guess that's just the way the world we live in at the moment, guys.
Yeah, I laugh because
I'm going to go back to college, I feel like.
Well,
might as well at this point. There was a point in my college career that I was an athlete and I had so much fun. I just wanted to keep going forever. I think maybe that would have been a good choice. I wouldn't have to pay back any loans.
Yeah, I laugh because girl that I know, Esther, she's a model. She does some stuff for Bikeman. She has posted up last night. I saw it on her stories, and it says my snowmobile payment associates as being a student loan or something like that. I was like, yeah, on point.
I saw that. Yeah. I posted something similar, or saw something similar that my mortgage now identifies as a student loan.
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't know. We got a lot of student loans, Britt. We need paid off, I think, at this point, right?
Exactly.
Like I said, I'm quote-unquote going back to school.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, anyways, Paul, I was funny because I do my research. We got a lot to talk about, catch up on. I'm kind of stoked you and Brittany will be on here for the first time together, but I immediately punched into you probably didn't realize that you hold a record that you didn't know you realized. But there's a Paul Thacker that owns the record for creating the largest custard cream biscuit. It took him 11 and a half hours, and this thing was 59 centimeters long, which I'm assuming is about 6 feet long or 3 feet long by 39 centimeters. So he lives in the UK, but we're just going to say it's you, but you created the largest custard cream biscuit, and you hold the world record.
Oh, yeah. You didn't know that I'm a on the down low baker, but yeah, you should have known that by now.
Well,
yeah, no, I had no idea. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, yeah. I know what you guys bake up there in Alaska, dude. It's not custard cream.
Yeah, true story.
Yeah, it takes about 2 hours to kick in, not at 11 and a half. So,
right.
That's what he does during winter when it's dark for 3 months at a time.
Yeah. Anyways, we're so off on the wrong track to start this interview, by the way.
I wouldn't expect any less.
Yeah, right. So I do have to ask about the RC car thing, and it's funny because Britt can actually chime in on this because the company her and her dad sold started out as an RC car component company. But dude, so you're way deep into RC cars now. When did this happen?
Well, I raced as a kid, like not, I mean, at the highest level you could do it in Alaska, and obviously with athletics and riding and stuff, that kind of went away. And, as the body ages and it beating the crap out of myself on a snowmobile just doesn't quite feel the same as it did a decade ago. So obviously I do a lot of stuff with the charity that keeps me pretty busy, and I just don't, care to pound my body any more than it already has for the last 25 years. So I've kind of gotten back into it beginning of this year, and it just has kind of taken off. And the similarities between my early stage sled career and the RC stuff is eerily similar as far as like falling in love with it and having enough talent to be dangerous and kind of just going all in, and people are taking notice and starting to get sponsors and all kinds of stuff going on. It's pretty wild. Believe it or not, the RC industry is enormous. It's considerably larger than the snowmobile industry, and all ages from basically you can walk till you're, ready to pass on to the next life. You've got guys racing on the driver's stand together. So there's really no age limit or at either end of the spectrum. And it's a lot of fun. And I tell you what, it gets the competitive juices flowing, and it hurts a whole hell of a lot less when you eat shit.
Well, that's what's funny, because there's certain things like I compare almost RC at this point to a lot of the sim racing stuff. There's a lot of guys that have kind of retired from driving race cars and stuff, but they've got into like iRacing and all the sim racing stuff because it's the same thing. They're like, gets the competitive juices flowing, but it's not as abusive on the body, and it's darn nowhere near as expensive to competitively sim race. So it's just funny. I feel like guys that reach a certain age, and I don't want to age us out, PT, but it's like guys start looking at these other outlets. Like, I still love snowmobiling, I still love racing cars, but if there's a way to scratch that itch but not quite be as abusive on the body, like, I'm all in.
Yeah, no, 100%. It kind of like I enjoyed it and was able to do it as a kid. I mean, the last time I raced cars on dirt was 1989 at the Alaska State Fair. So it's been a while. And but I mean, it's guys make, I mean, obviously it's no different than any motorsports industry. It's a tiny percentage of people that end up doing it for a living. As someone who has done that and been there and have, know the process, know how to get it done, how to make it a reality, I'm going to give it a shot. I mean, my eyes are still good. My reaction's still good. I just, don't care for the physical side of things and how bad it beats me up, especially now that I can't actually stand up. That makes it a tad more difficult. So, I've got a slate of races, national style races to tackle next season, and have been in talks with, I have a handful of companies that have already gotten board on an entry level sponsorship, which is how it works. And, with chats with more, and I'm gonna go down south and see, if we can mess around, and who knows, maybe I'll slide right into a third or fourth career. I don't even know which one I'm on at this point, but either way, it's a hell of a lot of fun. And, I'm fully addicted. And as far as cheap, it's not that. I'm not sure which is more expensive, RC or real snowmobiling, but it's
that's what I was laughing when you said it was a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
I'm like, it depends what level.
Well, Britt's got in the basement. She's got because they owned a HCR that turned into the UTV suspension company, but it started out as making like billet RC parts and things like that. And I laugh because down in the basement, she's got all these like basically cover model RC vehicles and stuff. And I'm like, Britt, what do those things cost to build back in the day? I mean, you guys had to have been $5-6 grand deep into those things.
Yeah, that's how I can't even think of it. The theme cars, the theme trucks we had. So that was back all the EMAX, T-Max days, the low Cs. I think the biggest one they had was like an 8 scale, and it had a moped motor in it, some Baja something. But yeah, we've got all those old custom hand-painted bodies, which is crazy because I was looking at some of your RC cars, and what I tripped out on the most is all the different bodies that you have and that's available now. And I think with just things kind of changing and being more easily accessible, there's so many different options between the rock crawlers. I mean, you've got a muscle car. Like, that's rad.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different classes, and you've got off-road. We do off-road in the summertime, and then obviously our summer season's fairly short, so we're kind of winding that down now. We'll race a couple more weeks till it starts. The problem is we run out of daylight, so we can't really, we race till 9:30, 10 o'clock, and it's starting to get dark. That sunset's at like 9:30, so we go back inside and we race touring cars, four-wheel drive on-road on the carpet, and we do that till spring, and then we switch gears again. And basically, if you can dream it up or you have any type of car that you enjoy in real life, they have an RC for it, 100%.
You know what I love about your Instagram, and I start laughing. I'm like, you look at mine, you look at Britt's, like, it's like it's this time capsule. I'm like, you go back to Paul Thacker 10 years ago, and I actually don't even want to bring up what we would probably be finding on your Instagram, Paul. But I but I look at yours now, and I'm like, we've got fishing, RC cars, and you're married, dude. You're married, and I'm like, 2-year anniversary, congrats, buddy. But I'm like, I look at that, and I'm like, man, Paul Thacker's Instagram has drastically changed than it was, say, a decade ago, even 6-7 years ago, dude.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, and I always kind of, I've been privy to the social media stuff and been under the microscope for a long time, so it's always been fairly PC, but it is definitely different content now, a lot less X Games parties and Monster Girl models and, all that stuff. Now I'm married. I got dogs, a house payment. Well, I've had a house payment for a long time, but a new house payment. And, hobbies / career path, I guess, or career choices, I guess. So yeah, a little bit's changed since you and I first met. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's funny too, because Brittany and I talk about this all the time, and it's like you in this industry and whatever it is, but we like saying we have no jobs, and we're fun employed, and like I truly mean that. But it's like you have to adapt. You have to, every couple of years things change. You have to be able to shift. And I look at your career path, and dude, I mean, and obviously you had a big shift. You know what I mean? That was no fault of your own after the accident, but you've always been able to adapt and shift and somehow carve out a niche for yourself in the industry, and it's not an easy thing to do what you've been able to do.
Yeah, no, I mean, people ask me, how are things going? What are you doing? And I always say, I'm just trying to make a living without getting a real job.
Yeah.
Which is, I've done a 9-to-5 gig, and I've been doing it since the early 2000s. So I must have figured something else, but no, you're 100% right. I've reinvented myself just in that span several times, and I blame my father for that, because he's been a pilot his whole life, but he's been a truck driver, he's been a ranch owner, he wanted to be an astronaut, and I mean he retired 2 years ago, and now he came out of retirement so he could fly his favorite airplane on floats this summer for a lodge, out in South Central Alaska. So he's similar scenario. He kind of, always trying to find a way to stay relevant and keep doing the things he loves. And that's no different. You have to be able to adapt and be willing to change and try new things. And otherwise you just sit at a desk till you die.
Yeah.
Which we end up working harder, right? To not have jobs, we work twice as hard.
Oh, 100%. Like, people like see the finished product. They see the cool wrap sleds and the cool painted bodies on RC cars and the bus and the things that we, the end result, but there's no time off.
No.
Like you pretty much are going all the time, and it's, it's like owning your own business, but the business is you. So yeah, there's no real vacation time. I mean, even when you're out doing things, for fun or with your family or what you would constitute, or most normal people would constitute as vacation, you're still at work, still responding to emails and planning and all the things that go along with continuing to not have a real job.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I was saying, this is like a month or so back, I was telling Brittany, I was like, we need to take a vacation. I'm like, not work related, not anything. We need to take a vacation. And she goes, you do realize we can find something work related in any vacation ever. Doesn't matter where it's at. And I'm like, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, 100% true. You never, there's no off.
No.
I guess maybe when you're sleeping, but even then I usually fall asleep thinking about things I need to be doing. So.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here's a question for you, dude. Like, obviously, you've had a ton of opportunities, you know what I mean, down here in the States. And I know you've spent a lot of time, in the winters, in the past, especially down here in the States. But you've always stayed back in Alaska, and you'd always called that home, and you've had plenty of opportunities over the years, I know, to move here. I think, your family still got a condo in Vegas, or you did last time I knew. But I mean, you've always chose to go back home to Alaska, man. I mean, it's got to be, I've been up there. Brittany hasn't. I told her I got to drag you to Alaska at some point, but I just look at like the fishing and everything else. I mean, Alaska's always going to be home for you, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's logistically for basically everything that I've done for the majority of my life. Alaska's about the worst place to do it as far as making a living. But yeah, I mean, if you enjoy any type of outdoor activities, albeit winter, summer, spring, fall. There just isn't a better place that I've ever been, and I've been all over the world. So, yeah, it's home. I mean, the people are great. The schools are great. They're just the state in general is really it's a cool place to live. And yeah, I couldn't see myself living anywhere else permanently. Will there be a time when, the winters might get a little long and you need a little warmer weather? Yeah, maybe down the road, but I don't see, my wife loves it here. She was born and raised here as well. And she loves the dark and cold and winter and rain and all the things that I don't like. So dragging her out of Alaska is going to be damn near impossible. So, not that we have any desire to. It really is a unique place, and it's kind of separate in its own little island from the rest of the country and even the world. And I kind of like it that way. It's a cool spot. If you've never been, you need to put it at the top of your bucket list. It's awesome. The only caveat for that is you may not, or I should say, a lot of people come here on vacation and never leave. Happens all the time.
I had an uncle that was in the Coast Guard. Same thing happened. He was in the Coast Guard. They stationed him up there in Alaska, and he literally got, when his turn, his deal was done with the Coast Guard. He just never left. He stayed in Valdez the rest of his life till he died. Like literally, just fell in love with Alaska. So
yeah, it's a great place. Especially, I mean, I love winter sports. Obviously, riding sleds, and I'm an avid trout chaser. I wouldn't even say fly fisherman at this point because I basically only fish for I love the science behind fishing for trout, and there is not and again, I've been to Argentina, I've been to New Zealand, I've been to lots of places trout fishing, and it's amazing, but you're hard pressed to find anywhere better than Alaska.
So how often are you on the sled in the wintertime still? And do you still have the motorhome that you bring down here where you've got a place, or are you pretty much just in Alaska now? And how often are you still on the sled?
Oh no, I still ride quite a bit. It depends. I didn't put on a ton of miles this last season because because of supply chain and COVID stuff. We got our sleds pretty late, but I still put 1,000 miles on a couple sleds. Yeah, I still have the bus. In fact, I'm kind of in limbo. I'm not sure. I don't use it as much as I used to because obviously we don't have things like X Games, and I'm not doing as many off events. But I still we do I do the Warrior Ride stuff with the veterans. I do 5 snowmobile events. I do 1 in Alaska and 4 in Colorado. So I travel for all those. Ride quite a bit for that stuff. As far as the motorhome goes, I'm debating on whether the pipe dream right now is I might be turning it into the bus and trailer into an RC headquarters for traveling this next year. So we'll see what happens there. But no, I still ride quite a bit. I ride the least place I ride is Alaska because I just am in the wintertime. I'm just not here as much because I'm doing other things out of state. So, but yeah, that hasn't really changed all that much besides the training and X Games stuff. I still ride about the same amount.
Yeah, are you still doing any kind of TV here and there? Obviously, I know COVID kind of derailed a whole lot, but I
haven't lately because there just hasn't really been anything for us. But I mean, I imagine that stuff. How the motorsports and action sports industries kind of waxes and wanes, highs and lows, and I kind of feel we're in a lull at the moment, and as things, people start. The hanger-oners will start finally getting back to normal, and I think we'll probably see an uptick in that stuff in events, and hopefully that. I mean, I'm still around, and I haven't lost the edge. I still can speak complete sentences most of the time, so maybe we can get back to it.
Well,
that's better than us.
Yeah, that's better than us. I do have to give Paul a big thank you because Paul gave me my very first TV opportunity. And it was by accident because he was doing the Terracross television stuff over there in Studio City, and you had a conflict or you were sick or something, And I got a call from Joe Duncan saying, hey, Paul can't do the Terracross TV. And he goes, I want you to do it. I'm like, great. I'm like, when do you want me, Joe? And he goes, can you be in Studio City tomorrow morning at 7 a.m.? And I'm like, what? Tomorrow morning? And I was like, well, thanks for the notice, Joe. It's like 7 o'clock, you know what I mean, here in Arizona. And literally I was in the car at like 2 a.m. driving over to Studio City. But, yeah, and I've done a ton of TV ever since then. But I kind of owe my TV career to you, Paul, because you had a conflict for one episode. So you were my door open, buddy.
Well, yeah, glad I could help with that. Yeah. So now you're doing TV and I'm not, but that's how that works usually.
I'm not doing a ton of TV yet, but anymore. Kind of the same reasons. But it's funny you mentioned action sports. And I feel like that. It's kind of definitely in a lull. And you've been around the industry long enough. Brittany and I have talked about this. Like X Games is, I don't think anybody knows what's going on with X Games at this point. I think even X Games doesn't know what's going on with X Games. But I feel like, we're definitely in a lull, man. I mean, and that makes it tough as an athlete, things like that, to ride these waves. You've always got the 3 or 4 guys that are up on the peak, and they'll always have sponsorship. But, the guys that are competing for 6th, 7th, 8th place, times like this make it really, really tough for them to make ends meet,
Yeah, no, I mean, it's, the year, the times of making, $500,000 from your sponsors on top of shows and stuff like that, those seem to be far gone. You still will, you've got the Twitches and the Degans and stuff like that. Those guys are icons that will always be ingrained in action sports. But the up and comers, it's got to be tough at the moment because there just isn't the amount of events and demos, and especially for snowmobile, that's pretty much, there's hardly anything that goes on. Kind of feel like our days were numbered. I've said this for a long time. Our days were numbered in X Games because of what we had at mobile, and it was never super popular in the town itself, even though the ratings were always really good. I feel like COVID was an avenue for them to kind of let snowmobiling go, and I don't see an avenue back for us at X Games unless they something drastic changes in the near future. But yeah, I mean, there's hardly any, Keith Sayers does his monster demos, and there's 1 or 2 sled guys that might come out. And I think Willie Elam does sled and bike. So, he's pretty much the only guy that I know that has consistent work in the freestyle snowmobile world at the moment. So, but yeah, it's definitely, and it's cool. I mean, and Eddie and, people still really think it just, there isn't any platform for it at the moment, apparently.
Yeah. You think it's going to take like an independent or something coming in? I mean, TV time can be bought pretty cheap. Do you think it's going to take an independent coming in and be like, hey, we want to have one big weekend somewhere and film this for TV and just have this basically the pinnacle of snowmobiles, snowmobile freestyle or whatever racing, every single year and have something happen? I mean, do you think that's what's going to take, somebody with a big bankroll putting on a big independent event?
Yeah, I mean, you've seen, Nitro Circus did or has done with, their big events. That's been extremely popular. And hang on just a second. Hey, go inside. You guys are too loud. Dogs are wrestling.
Oh, yeah. Milo and Misha haven't chimed in yet, so you're good.
Oh, no, trust me. They're both staring at me. I've had to, smack them 2 or 3 times. I've just been waiting. So I'm glad yours did it first.
No, but how Nitro Circus has put their big events together. I would say they're probably a good bet to maybe put on some one-off, larger snowmobile events. But yeah, I think it will take something outside of, ESPN and X Games, an independent company or separate from that entity to make something happen. I'd love to see it. I think it would be well received, but we'll see. Only takes money, right?
Yeah, only takes money, which is tougher and tougher to find right now. All right, so we're going to put you on the spot here, Paul. You and I have talked about your career in the past, stuff like that, but I look at your career, and I mean, between world records, X Games medals, dude, you've accomplished a lot. So here's a question: What are 2 or 3 things that stand out in your career you're most proud of? Because I mean, We could go down the list of accolades and things like that. It'd take, half a day, So what are some of the standout moments you, like, in reflection go, man, that was pretty big now in retrospect?
Oh boy. Well, I've had, that's not a super easy question to answer, but I'll do my best. I've always been an extremely goal-oriented, competitive person since I was a little kid, and each time I've taken on a task and set a goal and fallen in love with something, I've always set what I would consider attainable. A lot of people might not. For instance, I started playing hockey when I was 16, which is extremely late. And I was like, I'm going to be a professional hockey player. Well, I'm going to get paid to play hockey. That's what I said. Anyway, I ended up, going to play juniors. I played college hockey, and then I, had a brief stint playing some in the minors. So I attained my goal. I should have shot a little higher and said I was going to be an NHL hockey player, but anyway, hindsight. And then I started riding sleds, and I'm like, you know what? I can make a living doing this, but I really want to win an X Games medal. So, and people are like, you're never going to make a living, and you're never going to win an X Games medal. Anyway, I did both of those things. And then, then now it's the RC thing. I'm like, I want to be a professional RC car racer like I was when I was 12 years old. So we'll see how that one works out. But as far as the things that really stand out, I would say, the world record distance jumps that was a pretty cool thing. And it was, to be compared to the likes of, like Trigger Gum and Robbie Madison and Ryan Capes and Evel Knievel at the time, that was a big deal to me, and it still is. And, we did it with, there was no real testing except jumping, and there was no, aerodynamics. There was no big budget. We just put it together and did it kind of old school backcountry style. And that was that one will every time I sit down and really think about it, that was a pretty impressive accomplishment in my mind. I would say probably the next would be when I started the foundation. That's kind of, when I first started the foundation, it was basically to assist in my recovery, and it quickly morphed into doing stuff for veterans, and have been doing that since 2012. Started out doing one major event a year, and now I do closer to 20. And the goal was to have one event a month, and to see the individuals that we have come on these snowmobile events, and I get to take fishing, especially the snowmobile events, because it's a weekend retreat, and to have some of these guys, take you aside after they get to come back for a second time and basically confide in the fact that the only reason they're still of this earth is because of these events. That's a powerful thing.
Yeah, and I've been around just on the fringes when you've had some of these veterans and things like that, and it's what you're doing, man. It's a big thing. I mean, you're giving these guys a new lease on life, and you can see when they come in and how they're very reserved and kind of down, and then you can tell by the end of the event where you see the lights come back on and the glow back in these guys, and and it's stuff that had been taken away and it's back, and it's, dude, I mean, I'm definitely glad we're able to talk about your veteran work, because I mean it really is amazing what you're doing, and for a lot of these people coming back, and it's awesome, Paul, man, and I'm stoked you're continuing to do it. I know, at times funding's been tough to get this thing to happen, but I'm so happy that you're able to do what you're doing, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I've been pretty fortunate on the funding side of it, because basically my sled sponsors that have stuck with me, pretty much from the beginning are all the major contributors, especially Monster Energy, Polaris helps out, Straight Line Performance helps out, Fly Racing helps out. That makes it easier for me. It's small. We're not raising millions of dollars. We're raising a small amount of money. And I just got back from Colorado weekend before last, where I had a group of 8 vets come in, and we did a day of side by side. And then I gave everybody fly rods. We went down to the pond. I did a crash course and fly fishing, and then we did a float trip the next day. and it was awesome. We had a blast. And, it's just it's just an activity, putting like-minded individuals together and building peer groups. We're not reinventing the wheel. It's just letting folks know that there's things out there they can do to help reset mentally, and there's people that give a shit about you, and to have folks you can lean on in good times or bad. It's been a pretty incredible journey, and it's as rewarding for me too. Like it's a twofold deal. Like there's plenty of times where I'm like, Jesus, I hurt, my body hurts, I don't want to get out of bed, and I'm like, yeah, but if I don't get out of bed, then how am I going to motivate other people to do the same thing? So it's kind of a circular type scenario.
Yeah. All right. So, I guess another question here. I was just funny. You and I haven't talked in, it's probably been a couple of years, and, I was just looking, I was like, man, I start looking at influence in the snow market, you know what I mean, and things like that, and who've accomplished certain things. And I started going, all right, so PT, if you got your Mount Rushmore of snow, who are you going to have on there? Because I've got Blair Morgan, Tucker Hibbert, Levi, yourself. I would even throw Chris Baran in the conversation for some of the stuff he's done backcountry wise. Like, who you got that have definitely would be on your Mount Rushmore snowmobile?
Well, I guess I would have to divide it into like racers and non-racers, because definitely, Blair was so far ahead of his time. Blair Morgan was like Ricky Carmichael on snow.
Yeah.
He was just incredibly dominant. And then Tucker was kind of like James Stewart, came a little bit later, was a little flashier, equally as dominant. Barant was kind of set the bar for snowmobile freestyle before it was cool. And, what he's done as far as, the business that he's put together, because I do an event with Barant every year, and it's amazing. The business he's put together and the clientele he's established, and his program is just absolute 5-star. And, he's an incredible rider and a pretty good dude. Like, we've been friends for a long time, and I try not to be friends with guys that are assholes. So obviously he's no more an asshole than I am, I guess. So
you're the same level of asshole. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, right. Levi is, he would be on there. He's accomplished a lot in kind of across the board in all disciplines, and he's definitely. I would say currently he's probably the most popular snowmobile athlete. I would say, especially on the social media side of things. Heath Frisbee and Joe Parsons, those are guys that, could just as easily be up there as well, because, Joe Parsons is the most decorated X Games athlete, not snowmobile athlete, period. That's incredible. And he's a snowmobile athlete. He's got more medals than anybody else ever at X Games. So, at least he was. I don't know if he still currently is, but he was for a while. So, it's nuts. It's something like 17 medals. It's ridiculous. So, there's, I'm sure I'm forgetting, and I'll probably get phone calls after they hear this, but those are pretty all impressive individuals in their own right. That all, that you pretty much just listed the, myself excluded, the 5 guys that I know that have made a legitimate living riding snowmobile.
And which isn't an easy thing to do, and that's what's crazy. The longevity of careers and things like that. And same thing. Like you look at a guy like Levi or a guy like Barant, what they're doing now versus what they were doing when they started. It's drastically different, but they've somehow been able to adapt and continue on. And to me, that's tip of the cap to anybody like you or them that are staying in the industry and still figuring out a way. It's not easy.
Yeah, no, you have to relevance is the killer. If you don't have it, you will quickly fade away. So you definitely have to figure out how to reinvent and, do things that are going to be different enough for people to take notice. That's how I broke into the industry. I was jumping bigger than anybody else was on the planet at the time, or at least known of. And that's kind of how it started. And, you gotta, it is obviously morphed into several different things since then, but yeah, relevance is definitely the key. If you can keep it, you've got a shot at making a legitimate living and having it be that way for a while.
Well, I mean, we're talking with a future RC car world champion here, so I feel kind of honored, Pete.
Well, I did. I have set a goal. It's a lofty one. I'm going to be a national champion. I don't know how or what class. They do have a super old man class, so I think that might be my best shot, but we'll see.
Oh, you're going to cherry pick. You're going to the super old man class, dude.
Hey, I left. The goal is kind of open ended. Like I don't have to race with the young 12-year-olds whooping my ass. I can race with the 40 and 50-year-olds in my own age group that need bifocals and shit like that. Yeah. So
I feel like you have to have your AARP card in order to sign up for that division.
Well, that's exactly right. Yeah, we all have to be in homes and wheelchairs. That's my other caveat for the class.
Yeah. It is funny because I've been around the fringes of the RC industry, and I've had cars throughout the years, and Britt's taught me a lot of them just because of her family's history and stuff. But here about 4 years ago, I did some event where I was doing the live stream, and a week later, one of the producers called me, and he says, "Hey," he goes, "you'd be interested in doing some additional work?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "I'm always open for work, whatever." And he goes, "Well, it's not necessarily in auto racing." I'm like, "Well, what is it?" He goes, "It's the Remote Control Car World Championships." And he goes, "And it's in Japan." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm way in. A trip to Japan." He goes, "Well, here's what we'll pay you, and it's a 10-day commitment." And I was like, I looked, and I was like, I couldn't spend 2 weeks in Japan at the time, but I looked at the dollar amount for the day rate, and I'm like, well, this is way better than motorsports. And I looking at it, I'm like, okay, so RC cars is a big thing because this day rate you do not get in motorsports. And I'm like, and it was a 10-day deal with that day rate. And I'm like, man, this is it. I was like, I started looking at him. I'm like, there's that many people tuning in that you can afford to pay me this? He goes, oh, yeah, dude. He goes, our live streams bring in, like, I can't remember the number at the time. And I'm like, holy crap. Like, this is a very big industry.
Well, I mean, there was a race in Pennsylvania this past weekend, and they had 900 entrants. Wow. 900 for it's 3 days. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Unfortunately, they got rained out, so they had to award, the finishing places podium by qualifying. But 900 entrants. That's a lot. In fact, if you get a chance, you can go on to you can Google the Visions RC race. I'm sure you're familiar with Visions or Mid-America, the complex in. Anyway, they had a not huge. They had their first RC race. They commissioned a company called the Dirt out of California, came in, built a driver's stand, built a couple tracks, and they had a race with, there was like 30 to 50 grand in cash money available. And I mean, there was some big dollars on the line, and that's not something that's typical to RC racing. Usually, you get paid by, your sponsors, and there was probably some contingency. I'm not 100% familiar with it, but I assume that's what it is. But there was actual cash checks or cash being for winning.
Wow.
And all of the top races that were able to attend were there. Big dollars were changed hands, and it was a huge success. So of course I've been in Duncan's ear for a while now, and actually talked to Brendan Playstead about it the other day about we need to do this at ERX.
Yeah.
Because there isn't anything around ERX. And anyway, so that's the next, step to doing this stuff, is to helping, get some other races put on. BRI is an option, or BIR is an option, Charlotte Motor Speedway, places where we can take RC that have an opportunity and tie it in with real motorsports. So it was pretty impressive and really good made for TV racing.
Yeah,
it's a big industry. It was. I mean, I didn't really even realize until I started getting into it again this year just how big it is. It's a big deal. There's a niche for just about, like Brittany was saying, there's crawlers, there's on-road, there's nitro, electric, 8th scale, 10th scale, 14th scale, 18th scale. There's all kinds of stuff.
Well, Britt, I'm laughing as you was saying that, like 30 to 50 grand at Mid-America, during that Visions event. And I'm like, that paid better than the Ultra 4 race that they had the same week. I'm like, that's crazy.
Well, that's what I'm laughing at, because I'm like, all right, we're talking about doing career changes here, Jim. I think you and I might need to make a shift.
Yeah, but I'm horrible at RC, so I'm hoping that your family's background, you're a little bit better than me, because like you don't want to hitch your trailer to me. You don't want to hitch your trailer to me.
No, the worst thing you could ever do. I mean, well, hold on. You just said something. Hit your trailer. Now I'm thinking about like a derby with RC cars.
Yeah, a derby with RC cars. Yeah, PT just dropped and he just got back and he caught derby with RC cars. So I'm like, oh man, he's.
I'm pretty sure they do it.
Like how they
Crash.
Yeah, they do the Circle 8s with the trailers, though. We just need an RC version of that. I'm in on that one.
Yeah.
100% have it already. Absolutely have where they've towed the trailers. I've seen it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so in.
When I say they have every like version of actual racing scaled down in RC, I have not found anything. The drag racing, the straight line drag racing is huge. Like 20 grand first place checks being given out. It's big. I'm gonna tell you right now, Beaver, that be careful if you start crawling down this rabbit hole, because there is no end to it. My garage rivals the hobby shop. I'm not kidding. It is ridiculous.
We got the 3D printer, Jim. We're good.
Yeah. Well, I'm laughing, Britt. We've got the 3D printer, but we do not have any more room in the garage. Like I don't. Unless the basement's getting turned into an RC factory, because I'm just like, what the? I've purposely kind of there's a 1,000% interest on my part in the RC world. I've purposely avoided it because of this, because I know the vortex.
It is such a rabbit hole.
I know the vortex, and I'm like, I don't need another expensive hobby, because I'm nowhere near good enough to get paid to do it. So,
practice.
Yeah. Well, I will say
all that free time we got, Jim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're over the time barrier at this point, but it's all right because it's been good conversation. But I don't know, when am I going to see you? When am I going to see you next, PT? When are you down this way? Britt and I would actually make a trip to come hang out, because when are you down stateside at all this winter or fall?
Well, I was gonna be the plan was to go to Heydays the 10th and 11th, but unfortunately I had a vet razor ride that I had to reschedule because August has been monsoon season up here. We've had a month of rain. It's been absolutely, it's been awful.
August has been monsoon
season
absolutely everywhere.
Oh, it's been brutal. We had the most epic spring of bluebird days strung together, and people were bitching and crying that it was too hot and too dry. Well, I'd like to punch all those people right in the testicles, because we had so much rain. Anyway, it's finally starting to, it's still rain forecast is for rain every day, but it like just sprinkles a little and not an inch. So that's a step in the right direction. Anyway, I had to reschedule where we go. We go out to the Knik Glacier and have a little lunch in Razors, and I take a group of vets out. Actually, this year we're taking a group of newly enlisted 2 days. So a little different. Those folks, newly enlisted, a lot of them don't have anything to do. They just sit in their barracks. They don't have cars and stuff like that. So we're going to try and get them out and show them a good time for a couple of days. Anyway, I had to reschedule that. The only time I could get the units rented was the 9th or the 10th and 11th. So I don't think I'm going to be able to make it to Heydays. Unfortunately, I got more important things. So yeah, I'm not sure when I'll be down. You guys might have to make a trip to Alaska, and I'll take you fishing.
Oh darn.
Yeah. Oh darn. Yeah. I think that would definitely be in the cards. We'll have to. Where are you at in Alaska? I don't even know where you're at in Alaska.
I'm right in Anchorage.
Okay, that's not
so
bad.
That's right where you're flying.
Yeah. What do you probably go from Seattle to Ketchikan and then a flight from Ketchikan up to Anchorage, or is there directs from Seattle?
Oh
to
no.
Anchorage?
Yeah, no, it's Seattle right to Anchorage. Anchorage is our biggest city, far and away. Yeah. So it's kind of the main hub. It's not the capital, obviously, but no, Anchorage is the biggest city in Alaska.
Yeah, it seems like Britt and I end up being in Seattle at least twice a year for dirtfish stuff, so it would be an easy just carve out an extra couple days and fly up to Anchorage, I think. So
it's like a 3-hour trip. It's not terrible.
Don't threaten
us.
So
in fact, they do direct They do directs from LA, Denver, probably Phoenix, seasonally.
We'll have to circle back with you and figure something out. So
yeah, for sure, anytime.
All right, buddy. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, and man, it's always fun catching up. Yeah, let me know if you get down this way or head out to ERX at all or something like that. It would be fun to link up and hang out, and we'll definitely try and carve in some time to go up to Alaska and check that state off Britt's list. We got this thing we're trying to check off all 50 states, and I've checked off Alaska. She hasn't, so we got to make this happen at some point.
Sounds good.
All right, Paul. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, anytime, guys. Good chat. We'll talk soon.